I started an article written on IGN. It was written by a Push Square writer as a guest writer, and it's the biggest tongue bathing I've ever seen for a company in my life, simply because there is nothing else put to juxtapose the position that this person holds. I made in the video some of my thoughts known about the very first 2 paragraphs, 10-minute video. You don't need to watch that video because where we're going to continue from, nothing's really going to, move you if you've been watching enough of my videos. So the writer is basically saying that Sony has warned that 2024 will be light, but is claiming that PlayStation 5 still has the best games. When you look at the mix of the so-called best games, there's literally only Astrobot that actually belongs to PlayStation as an IP. The rest are all third-party games that are available on PC to play, except Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which, by, common sense and seeing how Square Enix has basically screwed the pooch, is going to be making its way to PC, possibly making its way to Xbox at some point in time. This person has pretty much said that all these are console exclusives and has then given PlayStation the status of the best place to play games when many of them exist on PC, which we know that's a whole bunch of hokey. They then continue and say this because, again, I accuse, this write-up as being one that is designed to run cover for PlayStation in a year that they have no content that is appealing to most of their audiences, believe you me. And number 2, their competitor is about to demolish them from a content delivery perspective, seeing that PlayStation themselves has actually created the environment. You see, Bethesda would have been independent if PlayStation had not engaged in extreme money hatting. But when they decided that their eyes were on Starfield, they pretty much went ahead and, awoken a beast. The author continues and says, there seems to be a sentiment on social media that a game doesn't count unless it comes from a wholly owned first-party studio. Nobody has said that. That's nonsense. We know that Helldivers 2 is not wholly owned as a studio. The developers, they're not a wholly owned studio from PlayStation. So you're making that categorization because you want to run more interference. I'm on to you. Sorry, Sammy, but you're facing the criticism that we've basically avoided giving these platform holders. I have nothing against you. I'm just pointing out that, your write-up right here is absolutely almost bought and paid for status. I'm not accusing that it is. I'm just like, it feels like it is, or it reads like it is, right? So at the end of the day, when you put 2 and 2 together, they said, but PlayStation has done a particularly good job of working with partners to keep its portfolio packed this year. So PlayStation has done a good job in taking on an anti-consumer stance. You do know that MoneyHatting is anti-consumer, right? Okay, if you don't know, let me break it down for you. A game was already going to come to your platform. The publishers and the developers already had the intention to bring it to you. It was also going to go to other platforms. Now, in order for you to pretty much say you're pro-consumer, then you allow for the game to go on those platforms and compete as fair as it possibly can and be available for gamers. But because you want an added benefit and advantage for your own platform and for yourself, PlayStation, you decide to approach the developers, you give them money, and tell them, hey, why not delay the release of the game for other platforms so that your platform may take the appearance of having games that are not available elsewhere? It's a self-defeating purpose in that right, because the game was already going to come to your platform. Think about it. Guys, those of you who have been championing MoneyHatting, have you ever considered that the game was always going to come to your platform? It wasn't going to not come to PlayStation, right? But because of their anti-consumer stance, they can't help themselves. Not only that, that money that they've basically taken to now put towards blocking the game from other platforms could also have been used to provide you, the PlayStation player, more games. However, you're not going to see those more games simply because the money that you've spent on PlayStation is now being routed to other studios and publishers who have already basically funded their games and are now getting more money from it. So that's the player side. You're getting shafted. PlayStation is the only one benefiting from all of this, by the way, because you may not see that you're getting shafted, but then in a lean year like this, okay, do you see this? The lean year has come around, the year where there are no games, right? You're going to start seeing this so-called sentiment, these articles telling you, well, it's a lean year, but we got these money-hatted games. When in reality, you could have been getting something from the infamous world. You can get from Sucker Punch. You could be getting Sly Cooper. You could be getting a lot of PlayStation games, which the IPs have basically slept for many years. You could be getting more and more anthologies coming out much faster, like Miles Morales did with Insomniac and the way they brought Ratchet and Clank. But seeing that those monies have now been spent on money-hatting games, what was the news we heard about, Insomniac starting the year 2024? They were trying to lay off 75 people. They were closing studios because they've spent a lot of this money that they could have invested in their studios in developing their games on other games. There is no upside to money-hatting for you, the consumer. There is no upside to money-hatting for third-party developers. There's no upside to money-hatting for even the developers within those studios of publishers who are taking money to go put in other games. It's so defeating from many business, perspectives that I don't know how anybody is not able to see this. And this is what we're getting in the press. Goodness gracious. We are cooked. Then they said this. Stellar Blade is a great example of all of the madness that I've been talking about, I guess. And then they said this. It collaborated, this is PlayStation, with Korean developer Shift Up to help bring Nikkei Goddess of Victory Creators Console debut to market, and in my opinion, is another game in contention for an end-of-year gong. Wow. Now, anybody remember exactly what I just said is exactly the problem with money-hatting. Because, like I've mentioned, Stellar Blade was always going to be coming to the Xbox. Remember when it was known as Project Eve, when it was first unveiled? There was an Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro logo that was actually on there. There wasn't even anything that actually pointed out, PC, except that it was being made with Unreal Engine at the time. So the game was always going to go to PlayStation. There was no need for the game to have the investment to money-hat it. Rather, PlayStation could have put that money in its own studios to provide games. These games take 3-4 years to make. Even an anthology, the fastest ones that we've seen in terms of sequels or prequels or whatever it is, like say Warner Brothers Montreal's, Arkham Origins, is at least 2 to 3 years of development time. And with a lot of help too. By the way, Arkham Origins got assets from, Arkham City. Rocksteady literally gave them a branch of their game. Like they basically said, here, all our assets, here's everything. And they took a lot of those mechanics and reversed engineered it. So it didn't take as much time from a development perspective. So think about this. Stellar Blade, again, in terms of its sales, have not even been that impressive. As much as people may be saying, well, it got investors and all that stuff. They're only on borrowed time at that point. Because if they're not going to be able to deliver, it's going to be a very huge challenge for them as they go on in the future. Compared to maybe, say, the way Lies of P did things with another Korean developer where the game was available on Game Pass, but it was available to everybody else. Because the game was always going to come to your platform anyways. That's the main, it needs to keep getting repeated and repeated. Whenever people say, oh, this game is, just repeat it to yourself. It was always going to come to to my platform. Why would PlayStation bother money-hatting it? For an end of year, and then it says Rise of Ronin, a similar partnership with Team Ninja may have received a cooler critical reception, but it's currently ranked number 17 in IGN's ongoing Game of the Year Super Bowl, proving it was a hit with fans. So here's what PlayStation is doing. They understand the innate need for human beings to want to actually, in a sense, be happy with something that they've bought, right? So they make their PlayStation platform seem like, yeah, you made the very best purchase, when in reality, they're basically harming their own platform and basically robbing you, the consumer, off of everything that you could probably have gotten from them. And then the media will come and write stuff like this to basically tamper expectations, because the expectations are higher now that PlayStation has pretty much put itself in a position where it was touting, oh yeah, it's the best place to play games. And now all these games that they've basically money-hatted for years are now making their way to either PC, in some cases Xbox, and now everybody wants to now talk about, oh well, there's a sentiment out there that if it's not your game, that oh my gosh, look at the madness going on here. And then they go ahead and say, that this may proving Rise of Ronin was a hit with fans. Did they ever talk about the sales of Stellar Blade and Rise of Ronin in order for them to be able to conclude that it was a hit with fans? Because apparently these so-called fans that you're actually talking about were playing Call of Duty. They were not bothered. And I'm only just, in a sense, 40 to 50%, through this article. And we're 10 minutes in. And this dysfunction continues. I'm going to basically hold off for another part for this video because this is madness, folks. This is exactly the sickness that is going on in our gaming discourse in today's day and age that I strongly, in my opinion anyways, just laugh at how people come up with the crazy conclusions that they come up with. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.